So, man, appreciate it. Thanks
No
for being
problem.
open.
Right.
And again, man, I just try and get to know my neighbors and hear their story and
Right. Okay.
humanize the dehumanized.
Uh,
And I start from the beginning. Uh,
okay. Go ahead.
Russell, where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
Originally myself, I was born in Georgia. Um, I was raised by people, pretty good people, you know, my dad and stuff. And I'm actually somebody that's, I guess the way to put this is I've been raised to be trying to be like a light for people. It's like trying to help people, try to be there, you know. And I'll being with homelessness being a thing here, it's something that still beckons cold. I mean, people like, you know, I come from an era when, like, in the early '90s, throughout the mid '90s and stuff. I come from an era where, you know, kids were taught, you know, to hold each other close. You know, we were taught to be there for one another. Like, in that same sense, you know, there was a teaching and a way of life. There was a whole thing, and it was the need for heroes, the need for somebody to be there for one another, the need for people to help save the day when stuff like happen, you know. And so here amongst, you know, a place that's not so great. Like, so the biggest and worst issue that faces all humanity in a lot of ways is that no one can see the similarities between us, but they can easily see the differences. So, you know, the differences being, oh, you have money and I don't, or you know, this person lives in a house, that person lives in a tent, or this person drives a car, this person drives a bus. These things are not what holds any merit or holds any particular type of importance in our reality. So the biggest thing is, if one can take themselves aside from everything and from what they're dealing with and what they're going through, and see the similarities in one another, and see how we can be there and help one another in our fight to, like, you know, eradicate all this unneeded hatred. You know, just a few weeks ago, people were throwing like Molotov cocktails at tents. Okay, so let's take that in retrospective look. So if you throw a Molotov cocktail at a house, it's a building. It'll burn through the walls just as well as anything else, but at least the people inside have a chance of escaping. Whereas if you throw it at a tent or a built structure on a street corner, the chances are not as good of somebody not dying. But in the same respect, the same person that chose to feel that way or feel need to throw a Molotov cocktail at a tent or to throw an explosive at a tent would want for you to feel that same compassion, for them to not to reap some type of benefits or not to reap some type of punishment for that. This is a very uneven. It's an uneven keel. This is a literal horrible. It's a horrible representation of what people want others to do for them. There's like one of the cardinal rules is, you know, do unto others. So if you're going to do unto others, then why would you go and try to like hurt someone else because because their life has fallen into disarray? And there are things in this world that do deem or beckon as okay. Or I'll change that. So there are things in this world that do differ in how a person can take what happens to a person that lives in a tent or someone be homeless. So some people are homeless because their lives fell to disarray. Some people are homeless because of drugs. Some people are homeless because of another person. Some people are homeless because something was done to them by someone else or unknown entities. I mean, it was like whatever the case may be. There's some people that are homeless because of in mental health, or whatever it may be. That does not mean that the person that's suffering that affliction is not a person. And it's very difficult for the world we live in to be able to like take a look. Like I said a minute ago, or just a few minutes ago, I come from an era when, you know, like heroes were like something that was you know, kids, we were shown that those heroes exist, and that there's always somebody to stand up against whatever evils, whatever injustices, whatever it could be. So, like, I take a quote from like 1985 or 1986 Transformers. I was only 2 years old when the movie came out. Like, so take that in retrospective. So when I saw that movie, it had already been a movie for a decade and a half. But that was Optimus Prime he actually, like, he did something and said something that made something wake up in me, and it's something that stayed awake in me forever. And I'll explain in a minute. I'll explain how it happened. But so in 1986 in Transformers, at the very beginning of the movie, there was a huge fight between Optimus and the Decepticons, or the Autobots and the Decepticons. Optimus and Megatron get into this huge battle, this climactic battle. It ends up leading to Optimus's death. But before that, it's like Optimus is the only thing he says to Megatron is, "At the end of the day, Megatron, one shall stand and one shall fall. I am Optimus Prime, and it is my given right to protect all things in the universe and make sure they get to live their lives free." Those words have been possibly the most life-changing words to a child, especially even as like a kid like I was, but to any child, they would have heard them back in those days. Because why? Because to beckon, it means that in your mind, the first thought you have is, okay, so Optimus, well, I'll put it like this. So you see Optimus die shortly thereafter, after he defeats Megatron, saves the young man's life, the little boy Sam, that little Earth boy, saves him, and then dies. Like you see, one of the most heart-wrenching scenes, but the most life-changing scenes is right before, the way they depict Optimus's death is Optimus, literally his eyes. He tells Hot Rod that he's got to take over, gives Hot Rod the Matrix, the spark of the Matrix. Hot Rod then becomes Rodimus Prime, and Optimus's eyes, the light goes out, and he's gone. It's that in itself, that's it could be seen in so many different ways. But now, how did that change over? Like I was saying, how did it change over in my heart? So as a kid, seeing that, I took that to mean that just like all the other things that I took in the '90s, the Ninja Turtles, and even sadly enough, even some other series that involve colorful heroes. I won't say any names. I was a stunt double, so it was like, well, just leave that alone. But so there was the team, all the unification, unity. You know, it was like the Ninja Turtles. There were like one Ninja Turtle by himself was only so good, but when they were all four together, the strength was had. Same thing with Voltron. Same thing with the Transformers. This was a common thing placed in these cartoons in the '90s, because it was trying to instill into each child that watched it the need to grow up and be someone better, to do something. And this is, for me, this is where this comes in. So I have been homeless back here in Seattle for about 15 or 20 years, I want to say. Or maybe. It could probably be less than that or more than that. It just depends. But the point is, so when I first got back here, I learned that
you have from Georgia.
Yes, yes. It was like getting back from Georgia. I realized that to survive, you had to find the hustles or find whatever, find your niche, whatever it may be. I don't necessarily talk about that because it's something that these, it's like, whether they be sins or not, they're sins that I carry with my soul, and I'll have to answer for them when time comes. It's like, I can say that I am a person that tries to, I'm very universally engaged mentally, and spiritually, I guess. So my mind works in the sense of hurt no one, no matter what. It's like, survive however you may or must, but hurt no other to do it. And so that's what I do. Those that cross me or would cross me, I try to deal with in kind heart and kind thought, but sometimes it's not possible. So, like I was saying, every last one of the people here, I can name probably about 40 people, 50 people, that for the better part of 15 years, I've been their sole survival. You would say, how is a homeless person maybe a sole survival for that many people? Because every dime I get, every amount of money I make, everything that I have, and everything I am and everything I have, I put forth for the efforts of trying to help others. Even those that betray me, those that have turned over on me, those that have done this, done that. That's not what matters. What matters is they believe, that some of the people believe in me. It was like, so if people believe in me, then it's almost a necessity to try and help them. And which now brings me to this. So to every person that watches this, I want to go ahead and say, this is where I cease in telling you of who I am and I actually try to bring your minds to something completely different. Every time you wake up, every day that you wake up, what is the purpose behind it? Is it before your children? Is it for your family? Is it for your car? Is it for your money? Or is it for the existence of another so that we can continue? The world we are living in on a day-to-day basis is becoming a very dark and very horrible place. Just our city itself that we live in here in Seattle is bathed in all kinds of darkness that people would never even imagine. I see it, I've dealt with it, I've literally almost been engulfed by it, but somehow made it through. Not to say I'm that much stronger than anyone else, but to say that maybe the universe can touch and tap people, much like my friend here who's doing this. He's doing this because something moved him to try and help, to show people that this is something that must change, and he's very right. And it's not just because, oh, well, he has to change because, no, we have to change because we're all falling very short of our own like right and given choice through creation to do better. And whether one believes in God or one believes in whatever, it does not matter. What matters is we're all breathing people. We're all human beings. We all live on this planet, this dirt ball in the middle of nowhere in space. And up until someone can take their mind and transcend the existence to a better existence, we're going to be here. So why would you try and eradicate or stomp out something or someone because you don't like the way they look, or because they live in a tent, or because they bring your property value up, or because maybe you just don't like people that don't have homes? Whatever the reason may be, it's not the way to go. This is not a choice given to each of us. It's something that came from beyond us and just happened to tap us in a certain way. So the best thing I can say is that, to those, I said earlier, I think, just on a possible whim, I said something to Chris. I said, it's hard to see what goes on at below us from the top of the tower. That's not to be cryptic, because it's not cryptic. It's very cut and plain white and black. It's to those that live in a high up place. How are they supposed to know what happens to the people below us, to below their feet? They wouldn't. And so what? They come out every day, and they go do this, and they go do that, and they work their jobs, and they go to places here. But they return to their hallowed place above, not to the streets or to the dark place below. What's beneath the fells is not something to fear necessarily. It's something to embrace. As human beings, we have a very, very innate fear of the unknown and darkness. Standing darkness has nothing to fear in it. What you would fear is the creatures that might come from it. But sometimes the creatures that are most fearful, that cause more fear, are the ones from within us. The ones that we look in a mirror and see. The ones that we hear every time we yell, every time we laugh at another who suffers, every time we kick over a person, or kick over a person reaching a hand up for help, or whatever it may be. Those are the monsters that we should most fear. It's easy, once again, to forget where we all come from, because I can promise that of 100 people that might see this, at least 75 of them will probably have come from something much less than what they are now. There might be some that have ended up in less than what they were, but more than likely it's not the latter. It's going to be what happens. It's going to be what has happened to them up until from. It's just the way things are. The universe works very, very subtly. Whether you believe in God or whether you believe in just a more divine existence, it takes living beings, mortal beings, to help push on and move on the system and things so that things level out. I guess the biggest thing I can say is that if you are a person that has at least even an inkling of what existence really is, because some people say they do know, but probably don't. I myself can honestly say I do. At present moment, it's funny. Take a look at that. So the image is the image that I'm going to describe to you is at present moment what's walking by me. they would be people of Muslim descent. A man, his wife, his daughter, and his son, walking home. They just walked through a homeless encampment of people that are normally looked at like monsters, looked at like less people than anybody. The man, his family, didn't even bat an eye, actually waved at the people in one of the tents and kept walking. Why is that? Because they innately, although they even don't even speak English, because I could hear them in the conversation, I would gather that there was no fear they felt. There was no need. This happens all the time in Seattle. One group of people says that this group of people are worthless and they're not even people. It takes one man or men to see differently and stand up for them, to help eradicate that mindset and bring back that need for Optimus Prime.
Russell, man. It's good stuff. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome, brother.
I love it. I love it, man. It's real stuff.
Right.
All right. I gotta take a couple pictures.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I hope that helps.
No, I think it will.